So we want to welcome Big Dese and Confidence to the No Ideas Original Podcast. Thank y'all for pulling up.
No doubt.
We're all original Bronxites, and both of y'all what, Bostonians?
Yep.
He said no.
Interesting. No, Confidence said no. Confidence, where you from, bro?
I'm from Philadelphia.
Okay.
But I have been up here for a long time. However, I don't care. I still don't claim. No offense. But I mean, because like in my mind, like I got that East Coast, the East Coast flavor came from Philly for me.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Boston was like kind of behind it a little bit. But for me, like growing up, like I had all the same shit New York had. So
Okay.
I learned from that not that these did it, but like I felt it was just different being like closer to the Mecca.
Okay.
Like 2 hours.
I'm sorry.
So how'd you feel when he said, I don't even try like James Harden on the Sixers?
Well, see, I like that, but you remember Large Q-Tip? I forget what joint, but he was like, my man Large Professor said never say like the year in your song.
Mm-hmm.
And now like I listen to him like James Harden ain't even on the Sixers.
We know what he did there though.
No doubt.
Oh man. So both of y'all, I guess, tell us how you got into music and what inspired you to get into music.
Go ahead, Dese, what you got?
All right. Well, I taught first time I heard hip hop, I had older sisters, and they were into like Guns N' Roses and shit. And then it was actually the Fresh Prince. I saw Parents Just Don't Understand.
Wow.
On MTV, and I was like, "What is this shit?" And I got to credit Will Smith. Ever since that video, I was just pure hip hop. And then I think I had a Low End Theory cassette tape, second grade, and I knew all the words to that. And then I didn't start rhyming until I think I was about 17, and then a couple people in high school rhymed, and then I started rhyming on the low, and then shortly after that I did my first battle. I was in the battle scene, freestyle battles, and started making music.
Nice. So
and
what about you, Confidence?
Who? Yeah, Confidence. Yeah, I'm sorry.
All right, no worries. Did you say, Shah, how did you get into hip hop, or how did you get into making music?
Yeah, how'd you get into hip hop, and what was your inspiration?
Well, I was in 4th grade. I had a friend. It was Korean, which I love this story because he was Korean, and he gave me a tape one day, and he said, "Listen to this." And on one side was Run DMC, and the other side was LL Cool J. And after that, I was like, "Wow, like these, like what is this?" I was 10 years old, and I was like, "Wow, this is like this." I never heard nothing like this, and I just same thing, and I just gravitated to it, and that was pretty much it from there.
Yeah.
So back to you, Dese. Who was it that you were listening to that galvanized you to want to write at 17? Like, I need to write like that. That's like I like what I'm thinking by that. Yeah.
Yeah. In high school, it was Wu-Tang Forever. I think that was like big. That was big in my high school, and also the lyricist. I don't know if the Lyricist Lounge Volume 1. That was big. Yeah.
Had Most Def, Rusty, had everybody on there.
Right, punching words.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's what's up.
Yeah, y'all.
So
so I know Confidence, you from Philly, it was a little different. Dese, what's the rap scene like out there in Boston? Both of you guys know what's the scene like out there?
Right, I was gonna ask that.
I'd say like coming up in the early 2000s, late 90s. We had a pretty good scene. We have a venue called the Middle East, and there's a bunch of acts that's always coming through. But we have cats like Acrobatic. I don't know if you ever heard of them.
Yeah, also Acrobatic.
You know, Esoteric of Czarface,
Of course.
Mr. Lift, you know, Schizophrenics. But you know, I think we had, you know, pretty good scene in the early 2000s. Currently, since COVID, it's like hardly any shows. You know what I mean?
Wow.
Yeah.
Damn.
Because I was going to ask you, you know, is Boston getting their flowers? Because in the Northeast, it seems like it stops at New York. Once it gets past it, don't go to Connecticut. It don't hit Rhode Island. Massachusetts. I don't even know if there's any hip hop in Maine. I don't even know.
Yeah.
Do you feel like Boston is getting their flowers, or do they receive their flowers? How was that reception with the general public?
I think it's tough to get out of Boston. You know what I mean? Like, you may get to a certain point here, and then it's like you got to make the move. Like, look at like Millie's had to go to New York. Even like even Guru back in the day had to really go to New York. You know?
Right.
I think at some point you gotta make the move. You know?
Yeah. And listening to like both of you guys music and doing research for this interview, one of the things that stood out to me is like both of you guys kind of have like, I hear like hip hop in y'all, like rooted, like lovers of hip hop. That's what I get from y'all.
Yeah.
So with that being said, in hip hop, we always hear the terminology purist thrown around, like, yo, this dude is a hip hop purist or whatever. But I often wonder, and you know, I wonder from you guys' perspective, what makes a purist?
Well, actually, I'm called a hip hop snob. I'm a hip hop snob, not a purist. The other problem is like you guys could probably relate. The older you get, the kind of far removed you get as well from like, the essence and like the music. Like I remember when in 2012 when I was doing an album with a dude, and we had a feature with Cormega, and he came up to do the verse, and I was like, "Yo, and what are you listening to these days?" Like music from like the 70s and shit. You know, it's like he was already that was 13 years ago. So, you know, it always stood out to me because I'm kind of me personally. I'm in the same boat. Like, I really don't listen to much of anything because I make it. Like, it's something changed in me where I'm not so much a fan anymore, except for like the classics and this and that. But I'm just like really far removed, like overall.
Let me ask you, how does that transition into you making music? Do you stay locked into that 90s, 2000 sound? Or you just like, let me just create a sound that I like and just take it from there?
Yeah, just creating a sound I like. I mean, you know, the drums might give it that essence. But outside of that, I mean, the music is going to go in whatever direction I want to take it in. Because my thing is like, overall, like, don't let the music dictate how you're going to create. Right. You dictate to the music. Don't make it the music the other way around. Right. And then you have more freedom. You're not trapped by the sounds that you're given. Yeah. You know what I mean? And like a lot of people do that because they don't have that. They don't have like the ear to really to make that their sound stand out. Yeah. You know what I mean? So like it takes a lot of work and a lot of refining.
A lot of listening too. You really gotta listen for the certain like that sound, you know what I mean?
And I have a lot of experience listening over the years from, you know, the 90s and maybe the first half of the 2000s. So yeah, that's kind of like how I look at it, how I approach it.
Nice. And what about for you, Big Dese? What would you say?
I mean, I'm pretty tuned in. I think after like 2010, I had my kids. I kind of lost touch with what music was coming out. But now I'm back in it. You know what I mean? I'm like I'll be bumping Ransom, Special. You know, I'm tuned into the spitters. You know what I mean?
That's cheating though, Dese. If you listening to them, you still listening to dudes with like lyricism and that they still have that vibe of like you know like the 90s to 2000 era. Like for me personally, I feel like that one of the things that helps me kind of stay open to being able to hear like some of these newer acts is my children. You know, like you in the car with them or you listening to them and passing, you're like, oh, that kind of sounds good. Like one of the craziest shits though experiences that I have, I'm like, damn, either I'm getting really old or music has become like really, really turned over fast. Cause now I'm hearing samples from records. I'm like, damn, this record ain't even that old. Like I remember
Mary J. Blige.
Mary J. Blige. So that's that part is a little weird to me. But to your point, Confidence, like we did 2 compilation projects. And I remember on the first project we were mixing a record, and the engineer called me up and he was like, yeah, actually he had mixed 3 records for us and he had 2 done. He was like, yeah, I had some people in the studio, and he was like, yeah, I mixed the first record. He was like, yo, they really liked it. One, I was like, well, why are you playing the records for people? But that's enough. We can talk about that another time. But then the second record, he was like, yeah, I put it on and they really wasn't rocking with it like that. And he was like, they're younger, and he went into this whole thing, and he was like, yeah, if you really want to get people to grasp it, you maybe the sound, like some kind of explanation he was trying to give. And I was saying to him, I was like, that's not the demographic we're going for. Like, we're not making music for 17 and 18-year-olds, and I think like I said, to your point, it's kind of like, like there's an element of where you are musically, and kind of like staying true to where you are musically instead of chasing whatever the fad sound is in the moment. Like you look at a dude like a Premier or Pete Rock, like, you don't see them going after, a modern day art, like one of these new artists, and be like, damn, like, I really want to get a track on the Pop Smoke album before he passed or whatever it is. They kind of stay within the confines and true to their art. And I think that that's what kind of makes their art, timeless. They're creators, and they create around the way that they create. They don't try to chase the time.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, to your point, Shaw, I mean, when I was working with LOG, he's like, I got my lane. I just stay in my lane. I just make music for the people that like me. He's like, I don't go outside of that. And he's still in the game. He's still,
still relevant.
Yeah, and that's like his
shit too, yo.
Yeah, and here's the craziest shit. I don't know if y'all heard today. I just seen a posting on IG. Mass Appeal's putting out Slick Rick's new project.
I saw it.
Like Slick Rick. So imagine, what the production is gonna look like on that. Like I would lose my mind if I turned on a Slick Rick album and I heard like
Retro
Hey New World.
Oh man. Go ahead, King.
Listen, you guys, I listen to you guys work, and you guys seem to have a synergy with him, and it sounds real good together. How did you guys end up meeting up and getting together and start working together?
It's pretty much we had a mutual friend. Like one of my boys I went to high school with was he makes beats with Confidence, and I remember driving around with our other boy, and he had a Confidence instrumental CD, and that was the first time I heard him, and we were freestyling. I'm like, who is this dude, Confidence? I was like, I got to do a track with him one day, and and then what was our first album? 2004. We started working on it.
Yeah, we saw about 2004. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Putting in work.
Yeah.
Putting in a lot of work.
D, so in listening to your music, I hear, like it's the heavy punchline influence, which I really appreciated because, I feel like probably like mid-90s. Yeah, I would say probably like mid-90s. Like there was a shift in rap for me.
Yeah.
And it shifted from, having fun and being about punchlines and stuff. And lyricism was still in there, but it shifted to more about like reality rap, street rap, and glorification of things in the hood and everything, which, I could appreciate because I grew up in the inner city. But I've always missed the fun element of rap music. And I hear that in your music. It makes me think about like it was, there was a time where people were, happy to talk about the case of the PTA with leaders of the new school or, scenario, whatever it was. And it was just about like having fun, spitting bars and stuff like that. So I wonder, with you being a punchline oriented type MC, do you ever think that there'll be a shift again, that it'll go back to that fun element where the mainstream embraces and appreciates the punchline art form?
I mean, I think it's always gonna be there, but it's like you're gonna have to search out artists that do that. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
There's always gonna be artists telling you, you know, what's going on in the street. There's gonna be, you know, punchline guys. Is you know, you really gotta search out. Like you gotta know what you're looking for, and you know
Mhm.
who puts out that type of music. But I mean, I don't think it's gonna be like. I don't think it's gonna be like one thing where just you know everyone's doing punchlines. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you saw a combination with a dude like Lloyd Banks. Like he was like heavy
Yeah.
on punchlines, but he, you know, he kind of blended it. There was punchline and the street element still in there, you
Oh,
know.
he was
And
killing it. Yeah.
yeah, it's like so. As much as I do appreciate the reality and the street rap, like there was a time where music really did grab you and make you feel like Rob always said. Like there was a time where people would actually go to the club and dance, but then there was the shift to just going to the club and nodding and you know.
Looking at your phone now. You know,
Moving up the wall.
What do you think about that confidence? The shift from punchline and fun music to reality rap.
I mean, I think it's just an evolution, and you know, we've seen a lot in our years, and it's like, what's going to be the next thing? Like, you know, this style today that's popular ain't going to be here in probably 15 years. So it's like, what's gonna be the next like style that's gonna emerge, like that's labeled as hip hop? I mean, at the same time, I feel like we're so far removed from what really hip hop is because today's music is not really hip hop. It's just kind of like pop music that they want to just classify back into that genre because it sells and glorified and whatever else. But I mean, you know, it's kind of messed up because you know, like every generation has their own music. Like we had the '90s, like my parents had like the '70s, you know. And so you know, soul music and then the disco and all that. So it's like every generation has their own music that they relate to, and it goes away or it diminishes. And then now we're the old people, and the young kids coming up are the ones like this is what's in, you know. And I don't know. It's
what would you call this generation's music, Con?
like pop music, you know.
Right.
Because it's popular music. It's not really like hip hop. Hip hop became popular music, but it was still hip hop. We still had like, some of that sort of essence to it, and then it was slowly, you know, chipping away until it was like kind of gone. And it really was because other states came in. I'm sorry, but New York was just and always will be like because people from New York were making music with people from different states. They were copying artists from different states, and they're the mecca of the culture of the music. And then they started following what the next person was doing. It's kind of weird, but you obviously know that. But
New York is Cybertron. That's exactly what the Decepticons and Autobots go to. They go back to Cybertron. But speaking of purists, I'm liking that name Kool Moe Dese. Dese, like the play on words is so hip hop with that. Like, where did that come from? And then on top of that, my second question was, as an MC in this atmosphere that we're in, do you think MCs are more value, or do we have are they more value? And do we have a lot more MCs today than we did in the '90s? Because I think there's a resurgence of a lot of different artists. You mentioned Ransom, although he's been around for where there's Rome Street, there's Old Drew. There's so many different artists that not in your limelight, but got bars, bro. Like, how do you feel about the atmosphere today of today's MCs?
Well, once again, I mean, it's out there, and then you know, people that were hip hop fans, like a lot of a lot of people I know, they don't listen to hip hop like they used to, you know,
right?
And they get the misconception that like it all sounds like the newest stuff, and they don't even know like guys like Special Ransom, whatever, Griselda, all Graph. All them dudes are like, doing what they're doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just tell people like it's out there. You gotta look for it. It's not gonna be on the radio.
Not at all.
Yeah.
It's not gonna be radio.
I think it's always gonna be there. It's just you gotta know what you're looking for. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. One of the criticisms though that a lot of artists have, and I think the first person I heard say it was like Method Man. He was saying like, like the general public will clamor and be like, yeah, we need a new Wu-Tang album or we need a new Meth album. He was like, yeah, but then when people record this shit, he was like, nobody ever supports it.
Right.
So it's like, what is for some of like the older artists or, like even some of the artists that we're naming, like the Rome Streets and stuff like that, like they, they're active, they drop projects, they do things like that. But it's the other part of it is like the financial element of it, I think, is sort of removed from it. So now if you're doing it, you're doing it for the love of it.
You don't get the big budget like you used to. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think another problem is, I mean, it's a good and a bad thing, I guess, but it's like the frequency people are dropping now. You know what I mean?
I got a question about that.
You know what I mean? You're putting some of these guys are putting out like an album every month. You know what I mean? Whereas like back in the day when the bigger artists, when they got signed to a label, it was like they may drop a project every 2 years. Once
a year.
And then you'd have like it just the formula was different. Like I think the beats were just better back then. You know what I mean? Because you were stacking up for like 2 years. You know what I mean? So everyone had that primo beat. You know what I mean? It's like let me see the primo beat on this album.
Right.
Now it's just different. You know what I mean? It's
So
everything moves fast. So you might drop like a great project, but then like people just the way things are moving, people want the next one.
Life,
They don't stick on that.
Exactly. So I was going to say, so who's responsible for the that making music more disposable? Is it the artist or the consumer?
It's everyone, because even the artists are in that same disposable mentality. Because I know I am, and I'm no young kid, but that's how it is. Like because it's basically the internet made instant information available whenever you want. So that translated into like everything at least in my life. So, I'm a victim of it myself. And, so I can't like hide that fact.
Yeah. Well, you know how you can tell it was shifting also? Remember before there was a time where people, let's say if you bought a CD, you would take the CD home, listen to it. You would have to sit with it for a while before it was crowned like a classic album or whatever it is. Now, somebody will put an album out at midnight, by 7 a.m. in the morning, they'd be like, Drake put out a classic album.
Yeah.
Like, damn, bro.
I think that helped you. I think that helped you back in the day, right? Because I think that helped the artist back in the day, right? Because you would spend your money at whatever Newberry Comics, whatever. You buy that CD, right? Even if you didn't, if you weren't crazy about it, you spent money on it. So it's almost like you got to keep playing it and find something good about it. Now it's like if you ain't feeling it right away, you're just gonna search for something else on Spotify or Apple. You know what I mean?
Yeah, true.
That's why those maxi
now you're not even just selling like the music, like you selling yourself as a person, like people, like it's a total package. So like you said, it's disposable music, but your social media presence, people want to see you, so they want to get to know you and all types of stuff like that.
Yeah.
How do you manage that part? Because I definitely see that you guys are active, which is good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough.
I mean, I get these freestyles I drop almost like weekly, so I'm not, I kind of let I guess my skill set talk, you know what I mean? But
that's right. Well, yo, Dese, you was a bartender, son. You serving shots out here.
I appreciate that.
Bartender, serving shots out here, kid, for real.
Confidence. I want to ask you, what's the difference in the creative process when you're making music or just, creating beats versus when you're working collaboratively, creating a joint album like the album you got with Dese? Like, does the creative process look different?
Well, for Dese and I, with his style, with that, a lot of, braggadocio style. For me, like I gotta have beats that have that like energy, because I want to match that energy. And So for our project, I was just looking for beats that had that, and Dese, was receptive to it. It's kind of like case by case. For me, in general, though, like nowadays, depending on the artist, like I'm down to like create something to match. If the artist said like I'm looking for this, like this is gonna bring the best out of me or whatever. I like the challenge because it's hard to stay like motivated and inspired in today's world when we don't have the sounds that we used to have to. Wow, did you hear that new shit? Yo, like, and you just makes you turn on your equipment and start working.
Yeah.
But aside from that, like Dese and I just knew like the way he rapped, I had to bring some energy to the music.
Right.
So I looked to see what I had. It worked, and we banged it out. And that was pretty much it.
He was playing around, like not playing around, but he was like, I don't know, we were trying to get to an LP, and he's like, I'm making more smoother stuff these days, but this guy can do it all, you know what I mean?
I did have to dig in the archive because because the beats that I gave him like had most of them had a lot of chops in it, and I do so much music in my life, like finding the right sound that could be chopped and to be constructed into like my own creation. It gets harder and harder as the years progress. So I'm glad I had those at least available still, because that was a good fit for like rhymes. So that's why these.
Who's doing the scratches like on the hooks on records? Is that you, Confidence?
Yeah, I did this.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
You on your primo shit.
Yeah, it's always nice when you got a producer or DJ built in.
Yeah, that vibe.
That's always nice.
Yeah, that's like you got a DJ background.
Yeah. My brother started out DJing first, and then I kind of like learned from him back in the day, and so like I was telling Dese, like so many of the greats, that DJing really is the first sort of field that you go into making beats. And I can really say it was the same for me, because that's where we started DJing. And actually, my brother then moved to the beats. And when I heard him, what he was making, we're talking like 93, 94. I mean, these weren't like, the top of the line beats. But at the time, with us being teenagers, I was like, man, like this is like way better than DJing. Right. I want to do that. And that was like my introduction to say I want to make beats,
Right. There you go. There's the inspiration.
Yeah, that's right. Because I'm like, damn, this dude can cut, make beats. He was like me, But then the funny part about it is, I taught him how to kind of do like the phrases, the scratch phrases. He wasn't really doing that. But of course, I'm just copying Premiere, But he didn't know how to do it at the time, or years later, I should say. And so, like, I kind of gave back to him the one DJ element, and then I gave him the beats to the next level, So it's kind of dope how it all kind of, formulated over the years.
Yeah.
So you're confident. Let me ask you. So, and this is straight to a producer. So how do you construct your beat? Do you look for snares, you look for kicks, or you look for that sweet sample, that one bar, unresistible, like, yeah, I got one here. Watch me put some drums to this shit. Like, how do you put your shit? What's your starting? What do you start up? Some kicks? What?
Well, you always got to have the drums first. Even if you're not going to play them right away, you have to have some that has like that feel, that sound that you're looking for. Right. No matter what it is. Like, you might say, oh, I want to make this type of beat. I want to make that type of beat. I don't care what kind of beat I make. I just want to make something. But you definitely want to have your drums ready to go. If you got a sample or samples that have, little pieces of sounds that you can just take and arrange, traditionally, like on the MPC, I like to tap out the drums and the samples at the same time so I can find the groove. Right. Once I find the groove, I start piecing it together. Maybe I can't get the whole groove out of all the samples I have, but maybe I get like the first half. So now we record that in and then start to build around that so I can get my sequence going.
There you go.
And, either refine and start layering to make it like, more complete, not just the same shit, the whole time.
So you're an MPC guy, I guess. Yes, sir.
Traditionally, yeah.
Traditionally, you have any other equipment like KO2? Do you even mess with the koala?
No, I don't. That app.
Yeah, the app. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I don't. It's I kind of say it again, yeah.
Phantom Triton guy.
Back in the day, I always wanted one. I never could get one, because they were expensive, man. Like, I did before I got the MPC. I did get a Korg.
Okay, yeah.
64 keyboard.
Okay.
But that was like me being naive, like thinking I could like make some dope shit with that. But that was, the sound were pretty bad, like for like hip hop, like that style. But but I'm not kind of like far removed from the MPC these days, unless I need it, because it's so old, and the technology to transfer the beats onto the computer and stuff. It's just so outdated. So like I kind of like create on the computer now, just off my like DAW program. I just like edit, clamp, bring sounds in, do everything.
Okay, nice.
So let me say this real quick, y'all, before you jump in. Let me ask that. So you there now with the computer? What was your first impression of the computer stuff when people was doing Fruity Loops beats?
Well, over the years I had made a couple beats on the computer just randomly, and they came out good. They were good, but like I said, like I traditionally I was more someone that would be tapping the pads and the drums, so that would allow me, like I said, to find the groove that I was looking for. I found like using like those programs kind of took that away, and you kind of had to use like your mind more rather than like your like, feel and like your ear. But now looking back, I can do it, and I can do it at a high level. And I only use the MPC if there's stops and I want to kind of capture that feel again. But nowadays, I don't know. It's kind of like all out the window for me, but because it's been so long. But like, it seemed a little foreign. That was like me saying like, I'll never watch a movie on a computer screen, and now
get away from it now.
Stuff like that.
So confident that you got those stems? Got the stems?
Yeah, what you need? Yeah, what you need? I got those stems.
Oh man, Dese, I went back and I listened to Dad Bars.
Yeah.
Dad Bars, the dope concept album, and now you have Kool Moe Dese. Do you believe concept albums are better received than just putting together, I guess, like a traditional project?
I really haven't noticed a difference. I think they're pretty much doing the same. So I haven't had that breakout album yet. I don't know what that's gonna take. But,
right now, man.
But I mean, it's funny, like some people be like, oh, Dad Bars was your best album, and then everyone likes something different. So it'll be like, the Pine Barrens, albums. A lot of people like this Confidence though. That so we'll see.
You know why I asked that though? Because I think that I often wonder, like, in terms of creating a project and having like sort of like a theme to stick with, like, does it make it easier to create a project and have like these are the songs that fit for the project versus just creating records and trying to put them together? Like we talked a little bit earlier about like the shift in music. Like I feel like back in the days there was like rhyme and reason, and people really put a lot of thought process into arrangement in terms of not only song structure arrangement, but album arrangement, because they wanted an album to tell a story. But now, you listen to some albums and it's just like, one record you'll have, not to pick on Drake because he's talented, but Drake will be singing on one record, then the next record he's killing people, then the record after that he's a millionaire, and it's just like, it's just all over the place, but when it seems like when people have like a concept album, if they can't actually arrange an album, it seems to come out better because there's continuity.
Helps them stick to a theme, and then it's more cohesive, Like I got an album I put out earlier in the year, No Respect, and it's like a Rodney Dangerfield tribute, and most of the songs are like self-deprecating and depression, but I thought it was like some of my realest shit. Mike Martinez, shout out to him. He produced the whole album. but like he loved it. But then he was like, yo, you gotta stop rapping depressively like this. He's like, he wants like he wants that, ignorant shit.
Oh, so is your thing? You prefer to work with one producer when you creating a project, or you like to mix it up?
I I like that because I feel like when you do that for a project, it's like the producer gets really into it. You know what I mean? So they're like, yeah, I'm doing this album. They get into it more. Where it's like, it's more I guess intimate. When you're grabbing a beat here and there, it's like, yeah, I threw them a beat, but they feel it's more. I like it because it's a collab. It's
Yeah.
That means y'all fit right into my theory of
I knew it. Good, Rob.
sounds better when the artist and the producer in the studio together instead of emailing shit. Just emailing you beats, pick one.
Yeah.
And I can tell by what the project that you guys put together and other projects you've done with what's the other guy, Chef Bogey.
Chef Bogey. Yep.
You can tell when people are in the studio together, working together, versus someone just throwing you some music and you just throwing 16s on there, because you need the both of y'all. He needs to hear your voice. You need to hear where he's going with the music.
Yep.
He needs to work. I hate that fact that brothers email shit.
Yeah.
Yo, Rob always be like, yo, the synergy it hit different if you could get in the same room and work.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Confidence. Don't you think it's better when you're working with the artist face to face?
Well, I don't want to. I would hate to disappoint you.
I know it's disappointing. Right?
You're an emailer, huh?
In 2004, we did some of that. But if you can't tell, then it's just
doing the right thing.
It's put together right. There's a good fit, like the lyrics and the beats work and blah blah blah. So we've given you that illusion. At least.
All right.
Rob, you know what you're picking up on? You're picking up on a creative relationship.
Yeah.
That's what, at the core, that's what it really is. Like, like the artist
projects and it leads to other venues. And then even if you're not doing a project with him per se, you be like, yo, I know somebody that got some wild bars, or I know someone who got some crazy beats. And it kind of just opens up the network a little better when you work together in that fashion.
I think part of that is like what you said, though, because they do the complete project together. If you get separate people doing different tracks, it's a little more disjointed, because you got one sound and one feel. So you got that level of warmth. But look, see, Rob, they had you fooled.
Sorry.
All right. To go back to what we talked about earlier, about like classic, a little bit like classic albums. What makes a classic album a classic album?
I mean, I'd say off the bat, just not too many skips. You know what I mean? Almost like you play it through. You know what I mean?
There you go, Dese. Not too many skips.
Yeah.
Well,
but I don't know. I haven't heard too many classic albums since 2000.
That's where I was going.
I don't know who's dropping. I haven't heard a classic album after 2000.
No.
What do you say, Confidence? What makes a classic album a classic album?
Well, I agree with Dese. That's like the first step, right? And then after that, you gotta give it some time. Like if you come back to it and it still holds up,
replay value.
Okay, yeah.
And like it's solidified because you're like, wow, this shit's still dope, man. I forgot about this.
Right. Yeah.
If you could revisit it, no matter a year, 5 years, whatever, and it still hits you again, then like it's.
I agree with that. Yeah, it has replay value.
Yeah. Now I'm asking this, and it's to a degree it may be rhetorical. I don't have the answer to it. What's the last classic album you heard?
I'll skip this one.
I might have to say, like a Jay-Z joint. Honestly, like
really,
I like the Black album. I don't know. That's going back, but
that's I like that album too. That was a problem.
Blueprint too. I mean, Both
We're
of
gonna
them.
go back. If we're gonna go back, then yeah, I could probably dig one out.
Yeah.
You know, it's odd. Like the Black Album was one of my favorite Jay-Z albums, also. But for some reason, I don't know if I ever heard people like really refer to it as a classic album. I've heard people refer to Blueprint, the Blueprint, as a classic album.
Yeah.
You know,
Actually, College Dropouts, I think that was a classic album.
that's a classic album.
Yeah.
I would agree. I personally think Kanye arguably probably had the best three-run first albums ever. Yeah, between College Dropout, Late Registration, and Graduation. Like that was back to back to back. All three of them were great, and they still have high replay value.
Dark Fantasy was at 5th, or was that
Dark Fantasy was further down because after those three, remember he did 808 and Heartbreaks.
Right.
Why he did that, I have no idea. And then I feel like My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, I think, was after that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yo, Dese, did you do a show with a beatboxer only?
I did, yeah.
Talk about that. How you do a whole entire show with just a beatbox?
How'd you know? That was my first show ever. It was, I was up at, I went to UMass Amherst, so that was, I did a couple battles up there, and then I met my boy Fuse, rest in peace. He was a beatboxer, and that was my first show. He was like, "I'll beatbox." So I freestyled the whole set. I did like some supernatural. Making words from the crowd. I'm big on freestyle. That's always been my thing. So
right.
But yeah. I
I
don't know how you knew that.
Who's the better freestyler, Supernatural or Craig G or Disaster?
MC Juice. Better than all of them. I like Juice.
Yeah.
That was a classic battle, him and Supernat. But
what makes a legit freestyler? Is it wit, imagination? Like what makes a?
I'm like a syllable snob. You know what I mean? If you're rhyming like one syllable, like it just does nothing for me. I don't even care if you got a great message. Like if I hear rap with one syllable, I can't. I just can't do it. You know, you gotta be able to match the multis.
No nursery raps.
I need the multis. You know. Yeah.
It's interesting that you mentioned battle rap, but because before that, I was like, damn, like I could see Dese really doing something in battle rap. Like, have you considered like really fully throwing yourself and getting entrenched in back? Because battle rap dudes is making a lot of bread now.
I did a couple. I jumped in too late. Rest in peace to Pumpkinhead, because he hit me up to do Grind Time back in like 2007, whenever. And I was like, I was like, I'm focusing on making track. I should have jumped in at that. That would have been the perfect time for me.
Yeah.
So actually, then I did. Then it took me to like 2018. I did 3 of those like acapella format battles. You know what it is? It's too many gun bars for me. So it's like I'm at too much of a disadvantage. I don't really do the gun bars like that.
Because you don't want to kill nobody. That's all.
Every other word you can kill somebody.
Oh man, I'm gonna say this though. Like what I will say about you is that for somebody who can fit in the battle rap lane, you can also make a song. You make good music, and there are a lot of battle rappers that don't make good records.
Yeah,
you know. So maybe that's the reason why you're not fully entrenched in battle rap, but you make good records. So I can see why you would kind of move away from it. Like there was a point where I watched a lot more battle rap than I watch now. Now, for me to watch battle rap, it has to be like a highly talked about battle, and it has to come across my feed and YouTube and kind of be on my radar.
Like, you need the apps now. You know what I mean? You know.
Yeah. What is it?
A lot of the battles are only on the app, so they don't go to YouTube like they used to. So
yeah. And then I think the other thing about battle rap now is that battle rap has become like so overly saturated. It's like 50 million leagues. I'm like, damn, it's hard for me to keep up. Like I remember before, like, you know, you had the Grind Time, you may have King of the Dot, URL, whatever, you know, it was a few leagues, but now it's like Joe Schmo's Backyard Bonanza. They got the promoters. The promoter have the money. They be like, we got Hitman Holla battling whoever. You be like, in the backyard.
Yeah, DNA. I mean, I think he battles like every. From what I heard, he just he'll go to anything, but he gets a bag every time. He may be doing like 50 battles a year.
Battling at the baby shower.
Yeah.
We'll battle for food.
No, but I mean, it to me though, it is impressive to see the evolution of battle rap. You know, because I remember, think back like a dude like Murder Mook, and I remember Murder Mook when he battled Iron Solomon. I think they gave him like $5,000, and people was like $5,000. And by the way, that battle, I don't know if you ever seen that. That was a terrible battle to me.
Nah, it was horrible. Yeah.
But they gave him $5,000. Now I've been hearing people like, yeah, the contract said 30,000. I'm like, 30,000, and these dudes can't even get through their raps remembering them.
Dude,
that's 30K.
Yeah. I mean, there's some
like that. Cassidy said that he couldn't buy. What he said, he couldn't buy his white tees for 5,000.
He's back in it. You know,
he is. Yeah.
But see, he's at the status like he can get a big bag doing it. You know what I mean? Probably better than what he can do off the music. You know
that's a fact. That's a fact. That's a fact. I mean, don't rule it out, Dese. I'm just saying, don't rule it out. The money is right. Then
I may come back when I'm in my 50s.
Loaded Lux.
Make sure you have a full white beard so you look like Santa and just come rip them apart, bro.
Right. I actually did I did a Red Bull battle, freestyle battle. It was like the old format a couple of years ago, and I won it. It was in Boston, and like Lupe Fiasco was a judge.
Oh wow!
But that was fat. You know Chilla Jones?
Yeah.
So he threw the battle, and he had like handpicked all the battlers to be in it. So there was a bunch of dope people in it, but it was like that was my shit. You know what I mean? They were giving you words, like it wasn't you had a freestyle, so it was like words on the screen. That's what I like doing.
Oh,
you know,
so if people couldn't kick their pre-writtens about the Tay Rock,
right. and then they threw on some I say pretty bad beats. Like, I mean, there was some good beats, but there was like some double time beats, like how to run freestyle double time and like, stay on it.
Man.
Yeah.
So how long did this project take to create? The Kool Moe Dese.
I'd say half a year, right?
Dese is fast, man. This is effortless for him. You know, he's been doing it so long. I mean,
if he gave me the beat, I'd have the song like that week. You know what I mean? But
yeah, like next day sometimes, even if he had the time.
Wow. Yeah.
Damn. So what keep your pen moving like that? That you don't? Because some people it take them forever to write a 16.
Maybe I should be more of a perfectionist, but I just like once I got the verse, I'm putting it out. You know what I mean? Every day though, like on my way to work, I got like a 30 minute commute. I'm always like I'll have like a 16 in my head, like on the way to work, and then like sometimes I'll be. When I put on just music and don't like work on something, I feel lazy. You know what I mean? So I'm always working. Man.
I need to say something. I need to put something to that.
Yeah.
Man. So we've had like a number producers on, and I've asked this question. So I ask it to you, Confidence, but also listen to you, Dese, talk about like your creative process. I'll ask it to you also. To me, I always feel like similar to what you were saying earlier, Confidence, when you were saying like, yo, I'm a pad. I like to touch the pads, rather than use computers, because I think that creating or being a creative, sometimes actual practice trumps theory. And sometimes when you learn theory, it hinders your practice. Like you move away from feel, like what feels right. And you start thinking more from a logical perspective, like, nah, this can't, it can't be this way. It has to be that way. So, and listening to Dese talk and you like, you know what, maybe I should take more time or whatever. To me, it sounds like that you're writing from feel, like, all right, this feels good to me or whatever. And I'm not overthinking it. And I think a lot of times when people overthink, you could tell like their art sounds really contrived and feel around it, the fun or whatever it is, it sounds more like a job. Like think about albums that we've listened to from people that we really, really liked and appreciated in their work. Like they have a body of work and then you get to one album and you're like, yeah, this is the one album that the label was on his ass telling them we need an album from you, and it's like soul work. So how, in both of you guys creating, how do you make sure that you stay in that lane where, all right, I'm about the practice, not the theory of music. I want to do my music from a feel perspective rather than being in my head about it.
It just comes from like constant listening and reevaluating over and over again. And like, you know, my wife or somebody be like, "How do you keep listening to that over? You've listened to it like 100 times in a row."
I get that.
It doesn't like affect me in a negative way.
Yeah,
I'm critically listening, and I'm evaluating. Like, is this staying? Is this going? Should I move? Like you said, should I move this? Should I leave it? And it just comes naturally the more you listen, because you know it's kind of like we were talking about a classic album, right? If you can keep listening to it and it sounds good, and it's just through that repetition, it sticks with you.
yeah.
But if you start having some doubts, then you start experimenting a little bit and figuring out, oh shit, it sounds way better now, you know, because something wasn't quite right through the repetition. That's the way I.
Yeah. Another example of that confidence, like, you know, you've been a creator for a long time. Have you ever went back and listened to some of your old work and be like, damn, like, yo, I really overproduced this record?
Well, I probably have done that a lot over the years because I'm very musical. So my whole goal with making music is to allow my music to be able to stand alone as an instrumental without an artist. So yeah, there are definitely times where I do overproduce in terms of adding a lot of music. I do structure it in a way, so it's not like, you know, some big like smorgasbord of sounds, but at the same time, you know, like for Dese, like if you listen to the album with the chops, right, there's space in there, so it allows him to kind of
pocket
use his rhyme patterns to allow him to basically shine a little bit more.
Right.
Whereas a different artist, there might be more music there.
Because
it kind of just fits in with whatever the topic is in some respect. So it's kind of like case by case for me. Depending.
You know what I would say with a record that I would think that this had to be by feel, I would probably drive, and I'm not a producer, but would drive like a really technical producer crazy, grinding the clips. Like listening to that record, like when you hear that, I'm sure Pharrell's always been like a creative, risky kind of guy. But if you sit down and listen to that, you know, and you like real technical, I could see a person be like, "Ah, yo, these just the drums. Like, what else is going on here? It feels like it's missing something." Yeah. But the feel of it and the response that people give to it is very different. It's the people are saying like, "This is finished product. We like it." You know, so that I'm sure there has to be temptation for, you know, a producer to be like, "Nah, yo, that beat trash," or that beat need more, or whatever it is. That's what I'm kind of getting at. Like, how do you get to the point where you like, you know, it feels good, but it just something
that ain't it. That ain't it.
Yeah, see, I don't have to worry about that because I'm always looking to add. And like I said, sometimes it might be too much to an extent, but I mean, it's never like put me in a position where somebody said, "Oh, I love that beat, but take that sound out." Maybe like occasionally here and there. You know what I mean? So like, but you know, like for the Clips beat, I mean, that was a dope groove, you know, and like that was what people wanted to do, want to dance. You know, that's like today's kind of music, even though that was old, but it still had that like dance feel. But yeah, like if it was my beat, I would have added some more stuff to it. But, I mean, yeah, man. Like, you know, obviously, simple is more. Is better sometimes. That'll always hold true.
Less is more.
It is about less is more. So it is a balance. So like anything in life, it's hard to find that balance sometimes. Depending.
Yeah. Confidence. You ever go back like and listen to your music and hear like a sample or some chops and like, you know what? I feel like I could rework this better and do something else with it.
Yeah, I mean, very rarely. It's really strange. It's almost like once the beat is done, it's like I'm not looking back. I'm just moving forward, you know. And there have been a couple of times where I have revisited old beats and made them better, but it's really hard for me to do because my brain is just telling me like keep progressing. It's time for something new. Like that's old. It's time for something, you know. So it's like kind of like a. Now what I will do sometimes. I'll take like samples from something that was like I'm not probably never gonna do something with this beat, but that sample was dope, so I'm gonna take that and I'm gonna save it and try to use it again with something else.
All right.
Yeah. We had another producer on here before. He was telling us about. I don't know if you remember when Rice was on it. He was saying like certain samples you just shouldn't touch.
Yeah.
He was saying, that's like producer's code? Like certain records you like if you found a sample for P Rock and CO Smooth, they reminisce over you. Would you try to flip that?
Yeah, I would.
Confidence, and that's why you're confident.
Yeah, that's why your name is Confidence.
Nothing's off limits. I mean, as long as you don't do the exact same thing. First of all, no one ever would do the exact same thing unless they were trying to do that, like on purpose.
Right.
Nobody's gonna do it the exact same way someone else did. It just doesn't work that way. So anything is fair game. Because I'm not gonna make it sound the exact same way. It's gonna have my touch to it, and I want to give it life again because it's old. I want to try to bring it back to the forefront. And I want people to be like, "Yo, is that the Troy sample? Yo, I think
he flipped that."
Yeah, like that's what I want. I want people that know what it is to know, like, wow, he did his own thing.
That Troy sample was Black Sheep before it was Pete Rock.
Really?
The horns? Mm-hmm. Which one? Because I don't. Yeah, that's that album.
Confidence is like I'm gonna dig tonight.
Whatever he used for Troy was Black. Dres and Black Sheep used it first, but they didn't use the horns. And Pete Rock listened to the full joint, and he got the horns. And when he felt the horns, he said that's when he knew that was it. You know what I mean? Because he was a little emotional about Troy dying or whatever.
Well, I will say this: to me, I do think it's fair game to flip anything, but. Yeah. After you flip that joint Confidence, play it for people first before you put it public, because that's a make or break sample right there. That could be a joint that could catapult you, that people be like, yo, you heard Confidence, flipped it, or you'd be like, yo, damn, why Confidence touch that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, to be honest, yes, I would flip just about anything. I really want to flip that because it's predominantly all horns, and I wouldn't want to just like take pieces of that horn and try to find a new melody out of it. I don't think that would hold up in today's sonically.
Mm-hmm.
But if it was like other instruments, like no doubt, I don't care what it was. But like those horns, what I would do with those horns, I would layer sections of that horn over another beat.
Okay.
So you would hear the horns, but it wouldn't be the exact same melody.
Okay. All right.
That's what
Dese, we getting merch with this project?
Well, we got the vinyls though.
The yellow vinyl.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah.
Shout out to Below System Records and my man Jerry for lining this up.
The merch thing, like in this day and age, do you feel like that every project you release, it makes sense to have merch to accompany it?
I don't. I don't. I mean, because I put out like maybe 4 full albums a year, so it's costly from a artist standpoint. But I mean, something like this, I'm glad we got some merch for this one. This one's special. I think the bigger ones need it.
And what's the significance of the merch? Like, why do you feel it's important to have the merch?
I mean, who doesn't want this shit on vinyl? You know what I mean? And this is actually my first vinyl as a solo artist. I got one with my boy Oak and the Dunners. So
this is all shit on vinyl right here.
Yeah, that's fire. Yeah. See,
it's all shit on vinyl.
Yeah.
Okay,
that's
but
fire.
What you got there?
It's all blurry. But I when Dese and I finally get together,
I see it.
I'm gonna get him a copy.
Yeah, I don't. That's right. We do it.
We got the Dese Unreleased vinyl. That this is what we recorded back in like 04, 05.
Wow.
Sarah and I put out like 2020 with Dese's approval, even though he wasn't that happy.
You know what happened? You know what happened with that album? I'm gonna tell you something. Well, I wanted to put that album out in 2004, right? Shout out to Jay Farrow because he's similar to both of them are perfectionists. You know what I mean? I actually had a meeting with DJ Next of Amalgam, and Joe Budden was signed to them at the time. He took me out, and they wanted to press the album on Amalgam, and I told Jay Ferrer, and he's like, they needed it ready in like 6 months, and he's like, he was working on it like it was a masterpiece, and he was like, nah, I can't have that. No, he just couldn't do the time, and then it never came out, and then he put it out in 2018.
Damn, yo, I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
Damn, what the
Yep.
fuck? Oh my God.
If that had come out in 2004, I had a foot in the door, but
Wow.
things happen for a reason.
Exactly. Yeah. We just wanted to see a light of day because it was so good, man. Like we said, timeless shit, man. We put that on like years later like that, and we're like, wow, this shit's still good.
Well, not. Yeah.
I mean, it was like the same shit like this.
I think his beats are still good. I don't love my rhymes on
Yeah,
it. It was early Dese. I think I evolved a lot. You know what I mean? So, I don't like a lot of like before 2008. I'm not.
That's old
Dese to get here. You know what I mean? I don't love like my old rhymes.
Divas like wide receivers.
Yo, last question from me. I asked. I don't know if they have other questions, but both of you guys? What's your favorite record off of Kool Moe Dese and why?
Man, well,
I think maybe Strike Back might be my favorite, but I heard it so much that like, we've dropped 3 singles. I like Big Old Butt right now. Just good.
I listened to that earlier.
Yeah, that's a nice thing to let old heads give them a chance to embrace the album. Give them a taste of the old. Wow, Strike Back, huh? I'm impressed.
That's hard,
that's the James Harden. That's the James Harden. You don't even try.
James Harden in 6 a game. Yeah.
OJ was all right. I liked OJ.
Oh yeah.
For the people on that one, just to be like, hey, I could do whatever, here. Take this.
I liked OJ.
No, that was dope. I mean, because he could do whatever. I mean, but this, your MO is. I don't know if that means a bad thing, like that's your MO, but for me, it's like, depending on like what you're going through or whatever, or where you're at in life, like I don't want to get like all depressed listening like some shit. I just want to like get some dope rhymes and a dope beat. Like that's it.
Yeah, that's pretty much the essence of it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
And a good beat to go with it, man.
Exactly. Yeah. So for my pick, it was Strike Back as well. But I think Melt, the second joint we dropped is my favorite.
Shout out to Oak, my guy Oak.
Oak Lone Tree on the feature. Yeah, I mean like had two verses different but the same kind of style and the beat. I mean, I just love that beat. So and then the cuts. I feel. I mean, there's a lot of cuts on the album, but like I don't know.
That's a great album, man. It's a great.
Yeah, it is.
The way y'all put it together, the song structures and all that.
I like the feel on Hip Hop Is Alive too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was the first joint we did for this.
Yeah.
And you'll put the video out today, right?
Yep. Well, we put it up today. I didn't announce. I'm gonna announce it, in the morning, but.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I swear.
I'm very computer illiterate, so I had to pay my man to put that up. I was like, just get it up when you can. I don't even have a computer. Man,
how do we know hip hop is alive?
Listen to the album.
I gotta say too, I think the sleeper here is that Dese is dope at writing some hooks. You got a couple of hooks on the album that they stand out to me.
Let me tell you, listening to Dese, listening to the Dunners, listening to anything that you was on, my dude.
Thank you.
You got my respect,
Appreciate that, man.
You got my respect, bro.
Yeah, the freestyle. It's refreshing though. Like I said, for me to hear, I'm like, damn, like I'm listening to the records. I hear the wordplay. I'm like, it's the wordplay is dope. You know, the content is good. It's funny. It's feel good. I'm like, yo, this is refreshing. Like, I'm happy to hear somebody actually making enjoyable, fun music. So I didn't hear your Depressed project, but hearing you now, I probably wouldn't appreciate the Depressed project. Even now, I'll be like, damn,
it's in a
came a
funny
long way.
Though, I ain't, it's not emo. It's more like
he's off the ledge now.
Yo, it'd be hard for me to be honestly. I'm gonna go back and listen to it now, but it'd be really hard, like to compare and contrast, like hearing the the energy and excitement on this project versus how you describing that project. I'd be like, this is the same dude, or whatever. Yeah, what happened in his life that guy gave him the spark?
They're going lifting up steel every day at work.